So we're gonna make chicken soup. Now, chicken soup with vegetables is a very sort of simple classic soup. But in culinary school, you're always taught, to layer flavors. So we do that by roasting bones or roasting the meat that's going into the soup. Certainly you would start with a mirepoix of onion, celery, garlic and carrots perhaps. Saute that in a bit of oil, release some acidity, get rid of that moisture, build flavors. I still do that all the time when I'm cooking professionally in kitchens. This is home cooking. This is big batch, simple, old-fashioned chicken and vegetable soup. And I do this all the time. And I never do something with one meal in mind. It's like 4 meals, and I want to put some in the freezer for an emergency, etc. And we've sort of talked about this before, Jason.
Yeah.
So it's also about affordability. We've actually costed this dish. As I go through the ingredients, actually, you want to pan down,
Yep.
We'll talk about everything. So this is the chicken. I've got 4 chicken leg and thigh pieces here. I've just rinsed them and trimmed off any excess fat, but that's all I've done. Now I have all of these vegetables that are they're mostly inexpensive. Sweet potato is a bit expensive right now, as are parsnips, but most of it is pretty affordable. And it's easy to keep them on hand all through the winter. A couple of onions. I had a piece of leek from a previous recipe. Leek is not something I typically have a lot of in the fridge, but I certainly have onions, carrots, celery, parsnips. I always keep turnips around, potatoes. I usually have a tin of corn or 2, frozen peas, etc. Christmas dinner, I had some leftover sage and thyme. I don't usually use this. I'm actually a big summer savory guy. Love summer savory. But we're gonna use it. We're gonna flavor it. We're not gonna waste anything. So the first step in all this is and this is the one pot, big pot. I've got this huge pot here. Even the pot that I typically cook with during the week is not big enough for this recipe. This is a bit too big, but anyway, we'll deal with that. So we're gonna start with a gallon of water. I'm just gonna go straight in here. And we will adjust the water as it reduces. I'm gonna click that on. It'll get some heat, and then in with our chicken. And I'm not roasting it. I'm just gonna poach this, and I'm gonna add all of the vegetables on top of this as we dice. We're not gonna add any additional fat. We'll have a little bit, obviously, of the rendered chicken fat. It will float to the surface. We can skim that off, or at the end, you can refrigerate it, and before you reheat the soup the next day, you can actually just lift the fat right off, right? So it's very simple.
I remember that as a kid.
Yeah.
Taking out the
beef soup in particular is like that. So,
yeah.
If you make it like this way, you don't skim throughout the process. Once it goes into the refrigerator, you have that sort of orangey fat on the top. Yeah. You can take a spoon, lift it right off, and now it's fat-free. And now it's really just a chop job, although I am going to put some of these herbs in here. And if I was going to make this in any other way, that I was making a stock or I was cooking the meat separate from the vegetables, I would probably put a carrot, a small onion, a couple cloves of garlic, a stalk of celery, bay leaf. I'd probably do all that in this right now, but I'm not going to, because I'm just going to add all of the soup contents right on top of that. So again, this is a one pot dish. And then it's about chopping. So we're going to start with a couple of onions.
So what would you normally do with the chicken? What's your process instead of poaching it?
I would probably put it I'd either saute it at the bottom of that pan, which would allow me to create a nice fond or caramelization, which I could deglaze with some water or stock after the fact. And that would give it a color and a bit more of a richness to the broth. This is going to be more of a clean broth. In fact, you would make like fricassee classically with this sort of preparation. So it's going to be very clean, very white, clear broth at the end. We've actually done a long time ago. We did on how to chop an onion, but
it's on there, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, this is
the channel.
This is the way I typically do it if it's just for soup or rough chopping. So I don't do the horizontal cut. I just start to cut in from the sides.
It's surprising. That's the only way I do an onion now.
Yeah,
it's just that one video.
if you do it like you do a lot of onions, or you're trying to get a really fine brunoise, like super fine onion chop for risotto or something like that, This probably isn't the right way to do that. You could do it a little bit finer. But this is perfectly fine for a home-style soup. Now, one of the things that my old culinary instructor always used to say is soup, everything should be the size that it could fit on a spoon. Now, I agree with that, mostly. Sometimes you can do a chunkier version. But for a soup where kids are gonna eat it, it's a good idea to go small.
Right.
Now, I typically chop the celery. Again, you don't have to be too fancy here. Protect your fingers, obviously.
So celery, is it more about? It's not a flavorful vegetable. So is it really about? Is it nutritious? Is it really just a kind of like a bulking up the soup? Or?
No, it's very flavorful. It's one of those aromatic vegetables that adds to sort of the background note. So it's a great vegetable for, yes, it's not the star. You know, like onions, for example. Onions are in so many things. Everything you make, it seems like there's an onion going in it. But yet everything doesn't taste like onion, right? So it's one of those aromatic vegetables that adds to the background notes of every dish. And without it, things taste flat.
Okay. I've never given it much credit.
But a mirepoix, which is the classical term for onion, celery, and carrot, is in so many recipes, and they're there, those aromatic vegetables in the background. So I'd already previously peeled and cleaned all these vegetables, so I'm just roughly chopping the leek. Like, again, this is country cooking, right? Mm-hmm. So my board is getting a little bit full, so I'm just going to put this right in on top of the chicken, and we're just going to keep adding. Everything goes in. The only thing that we'll probably wait on will be maybe the potato and the peas can go in a little bit later. Simmering soup. Okay, so this has the aromatic vegetables and the chicken in it, as well as the fresh herbs. So I've divided these remaining vegetables, just did the chopping off camera. This is the carrot, the turnip, and the parsnip. Now these are a bit tougher. They can handle a longer cook. So we'll go in with those next. We are not going to put in the sweet potato and the potato, corn, or peas yet. Probably do that after about 30 minutes. So that goes in there. We're going to add some bay leaves. 3 bay leaves. And let's do some seasoning. We'll do a little pepper. You can always adjust the seasoning, but it is important to cook everything in a bit of a seasoned broth. It does make it taste better. A good pinch of salt, not too much. Savory. I love summer savories. This is New Brunswick. I'm going to do about a teaspoon and maybe a half of that in there. You can use thyme, herb de Provence. Italian seasoning would be perfectly fine here too. And the last thing I want to do is I'm going to put a little bit of bouillon in here, just a bit of chicken bouillon. And that's mostly because if this was going to cook for 3 or 4 hours, a bone broth is plenty. This is going to be more of a 45-minute to 60-minute cook, and then we're going to take the chicken out. So I also want to stretch this, so I want to make sure that whatever volume of broth I have has a really lovely flavor. So I usually put just a glug, not a ton, but just a little bit of a very high quality chicken bouillon. I tend to use the liquid, not the powder. And then I'm going to give it a stir. Give that a bit of a stir through. And we're going to let that simmer for about 25 minutes or so. And then we're going to add the remaining vegetables. Simmer those for about 20 minutes. And then we'll take the chicken out, pick it, put it back in, and we should have a soup pretty much ready to go at that point.
Sounds good.
20 minutes later, potatoes and sweet potatoes in. And then you could even wait a little longer for the peas, but I don't mind. Just the corn. I did the broth and all. I didn't strain that corn. Has a nice flavor. And then frozen peas. So Now we're gonna cook for another 15 or 20, and at that point we will check the state of the chicken. And as long as it's fully cooked and flaking off the bone, we'll take it out, chill it as fast as possible. This time of year, honestly, I'll put it on a plate and I'll put it in the back deck for 5-6 minutes. That cold air will chill it right down. We have blast chillers in the professional kitchen, which does the same thing as the back deck in winter. And then we'll just add that, and then we'll adjust the seasonings. And you know, at that time you sort of play a little bit. You can add things. Mom always used to add, I don't know if you remember this or not, but she used to add a can of tomato soup at the end.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, and it added a sort of an orangey hue to the broth, but it added acidity. It was actually very, very good. It's her little trick, her personal trick. I won't do that. The kids like it sort of more clear and brothy. But yeah, we'll see how it is and go from there. So let's have a look at the chicken here. So it's fully cooked. You can see it's coming away from the bone there. It's not falling apart, but it's still flaking. So I think what we'll do is take those out now and do a quick chill while everything else simmers. And we will also, one more hiding down here somewhere. Come on, where are you? There you are. Should have got longer tongues.
There you go.
Oh!
There you go. Now you know it's done.
We have a Piper Dune. All right, so those veg we'll add in with the meat later. So we'll chill that, okay? Let's test the seasoning of the broth here. Wow, it's actually like really good.
Okay.
I don't even think you need anything else in there. So we're gonna turn that down to a lower simmer. We don't need it chugging along that big a boil. Just gently simmer. I actually always leave the bay leaves in. Oh, I almost look at like you're lucky if you get a bay leaf in your bowl kind of thing.
Yep.
So gentle simmer. We'll cool those down probably for 8 or 10 minutes, and then we'll pick the meat off the bone. Okay?
Okay.
Chicken, cool enough to touch. Now we're gonna pick off the skin and all the meat off the bones and shred it, almost like pulled pork kind of deal. Larger pieces, you can certainly use a knife if you want, but I just usually shred it with my fingers. It'll probably take 5, 6, 7 minutes to do that. So do you want to time lapse this, Jay?
Let's do it.
All right, do it. So we have our meat all picked, shredded. We're gonna just plonk that down, and it's fully cooked. Obviously, it's still very hot. Get rid of my gloves and grab my lovely spoon. Give it a stir, and that is a thick. Wow, look at that.
Yeah.
Just the right level of broth. Like it's just so filled with vegetables. So healthy, and this is the way I like it. Now I tested the seasoning before we add the chicken. It was fine. No salt or pepper, and you can always add more. But we're ready to sort of dish this up and have a little taste. You want some?
I do.
Okay. Beautiful. All right, let's give it a go. Let's try the broth first.
Thoughts?
It's It's really good. I mean, it's just pure chicken and vegetable flavor and those nice aromatics. There's nothing complicated about it. The bones obviously help with flavor. That little bit of bouillon that I added, again, not necessary. That is a gluten-free variety, but if you want to make it completely free of anything, just natural, just stick with water, it's fine. But this is so healthy and nutritious and satisfying, especially on a cold January day. And of course, the chicken is just perfectly cooked and tender, and it's just wonderful. I love it. Oh, it's awful hot.
I'm getting that on video.
That's good. Anyway, hope you like it. I'm gonna stick the recipe in the description for this, okay? So, if you've liked this, please like and subscribe and click the notification buttons. We are growing this little channel from a wee infant into something bigger, we hope. So, with your help, please give us a hand, right, Jay?
Right there.
Okay, we'll see you next time on Slightly Chefy.